The first time I saw my ex-wife cry after leaving me, she was standing outside a black Rolls-Royce with trembling hands. Not because she missed me, not because she wanted forgiveness, but because the man she once called a failure had just become the only person powerful enough to save her life. 3 years earlier, she had walked out of our tiny apartment carrying 2 suitcases and a heart full of disappointment. And before she closed the door behind her, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I can't keep suffering with you anymore, Daniel. Love doesn't pay bills." That sentence destroyed something inside me. Not because she left, but because deep down, I knew she was right. At that moment, I was 32 years old, drowning in debt, unemployed for nearly a year, and surviving on borrowed hope. I had lost my job, my savings were gone, and every dream I once promised my wife had collapsed right in front of her. But what she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the same man she abandoned was about to walk into the most painful season of his life, and that pain would eventually turn him into someone nobody could ignore. Daniel Carter used to believe hard work was enough. He wasn't lazy, neither was he irresponsible. Before everything fell apart, he worked 12-hour shifts managing operations for a logistics company. He showed up early, left late, and carried responsibilities nobody else wanted. He believed consistency eventually paid off. Then, the company collapsed during an economic crisis. Hundreds of workers lost their jobs overnight. Daniel was one of them. At first, he thought things would improve quickly. He updated his resume, applied everywhere, attended interviews, and borrowed money from friends while promising to pay them back soon. Every morning, he pretended things were under control. Every night, reality became harder to hide. Weeks became months. Then the arguments started. Small arguments at first. About electricity bills. About transportation money. About why he kept coming home late after interviews. But eventually the arguments became personal. "You keep saying things will change. I'm trying. Trying isn't enough anymore." And slowly, the woman who once believed in him stopped looking at him with love. She started looking at him with disappointment, then pity, then resentment, until one rainy evening, she finally left. And just like that, Daniel lost the last person still standing beside him. The apartment became painfully quiet after she walked away. Rain tapped against the windows while unpaid bills sat scattered across the table. The old ceiling fan spun slowly above him, making an irritating clicking sound every few seconds. Daniel sat there for hours staring at nothing. Not angry, not crying, just empty. For the first time in his life, he genuinely wondered if everyone was right about him. Maybe he really was a failure. The months after the divorce became the darkest period of his life. He drove delivery routes during the day and spent nights trying to keep a small software startup alive from his old laptop. Most nights, he barely slept. Some nights he slept inside his car because he couldn't afford gas and rent at the same time. Friends slowly stopped calling. Family members stopped asking how the business was going, and people avoided conversations about his future because nobody wanted to say what they were all thinking. Daniel's dreams were dying. And deep down, he knew it. One freezing night, while parked outside a gas station after a 14-hour shift, he made the mistake of opening social media. That was when he saw Emily smiling beside another man. Victor Lang, a wealthy real estate developer known for flashy cars, luxury vacations, and expensive suits. The caption beneath the photo read, "Finally experiencing the life I deserve." Daniel stared at the screen until his vision blurred. Then he quietly locked the phone and leaned back in silence. Not because he hated her, but because part of him still loved her, and that hurt even more. That night, sitting alone in the darkness of his car while rain hammered the windshield, Daniel considered giving up entirely. Not just on the company, on life. Because there's a certain kind of exhaustion that goes beyond being tired. The exhaustion of feeling invisible, of watching everyone move forward while your own life collapses piece by piece, of hearing people talk about potential while your reality keeps humiliating you. Daniel closed his eyes and whispered something he hadn't admitted out loud before. Maybe she was right. Then suddenly, his laptop buzzed. At first he ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Confused, Daniel opened the screen. One of the software tools he built months earlier had suddenly gone viral after a tech creator mentioned it online. Users were signing up rapidly. Hundreds, then thousands. Emails flooded his inbox. Investors, business inquiries, partnership offers. Daniel thought it was some kind of mistake, but the notifications kept coming. For the next 3 days, he barely slept. He worked non-stop fixing servers, responding to users, improving features, and holding meetings with investors who suddenly treated him like a genius instead of a failure. The same people who ignored his emails months earlier now begged for his attention. And slowly, impossibly, everything began changing. 3 months later, Daniel signed a deal worth more money than he had ever seen in his life. Then another deal followed. Then another. The startup everyone mocked suddenly became one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. And the man nobody respected anymore? He disappeared. Because pain changed him, humiliation sharpened him, and loneliness hardened him. By 35, Daniel Carter was worth hundreds of millions. Magazines called him visionary. Podcasts called him inspiring. Business networks called him the future of tech innovation. But deep down, a part of him was still haunted by one sentence: "You'll never become anything." 3 years after the divorce, Daniel stepped out of a black Rolls-Royce in front of the Grand Crescent Hotel while cameras flashed around him. Reporters shouted questions, investors rushed toward him, and security guards cleared pathways through the crowd. The annual business summit had become one of the biggest events in the country, and Daniel was the headline speaker. But despite the fame and wealth, Daniel rarely attended public events personally. Success had made him powerful, but it hadn't made him comfortable around people. As he adjusted the cuff of his tailored black suit and walked toward the entrance, he suddenly froze. Standing near the hotel doors was Emily. For a moment, the noise around him disappeared. She looked almost the same. Same eyes, same smile, and same presence that once felt like home. But something about her had changed. There was nervousness in the way she stood, uncertainty in her expression, and regret hidden behind her eyes. Emily stared at Daniel in complete disbelief. The last time she saw him, he was sleeping inside his car. Now CEOs shook his hand while photographers followed him everywhere. She slowly walked toward him. "Daniel." His voice remained calm. "Emily." She swallowed nervously. "You look different." Daniel gave a faint smile. Most people say that now. For a few awkward seconds, neither of them knew what to say. Years earlier, Daniel would have melted just hearing her voice. Now he felt strangely detached from the emotions that once controlled him. Emily looked down briefly before speaking again. "I saw you were speaking tonight." Daniel nodded. "That's usually why people come here." The subtle coldness in his tone caught her off guard. Not cruel, just distant. Like someone who had emotionally traveled too far to return to the same place. Emily hesitated before asking quietly, "Do you hate me?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "No." Her expression softened slightly. "But I spent a long time trying not to hate myself after you left." The words hit her harder than anger would have. Before she could respond, another voice interrupted them. "Emily." A tall man in an expensive navy suit approached confidently. Victor Lang. His smile faded slightly the moment he recognized Daniel. "Well," Victor said with a smirk, "looks like the internet's favorite billionaire finally showed up." Daniel extended his hand politely, but Victor ignored it. The tension became immediate as Victor wrapped an arm around Emily's waist possessively. "We should go," he said firmly. Daniel noticed Emily flinch very slightly. It happened so quickly most people would have missed it, but Daniel noticed. Victor looked Daniel up and down. "Funny how life works, huh?" Daniel remained calm. "It usually is." Victor smiled arrogantly. "Guess your little app worked out after all." Daniel gave a faint nod. "Guess it did." Victor's jaw tightened slightly because beneath Daniel's calmness was something men like Victor hated. Quiet confidence, not desperation, not insecurity, but certainty. And people who built their identities around power often felt threatened by people who no longer needed approval. As Victor led Emily away, she looked back one last time. And for the first time since leaving him, she looked afraid she had made the biggest mistake of her life. That night, Daniel stood alone inside his penthouse staring at the city skyline. Thousands of lights stretched endlessly across the darkness below him. 3 years earlier, he would have given anything to live this life. Now he wasn't sure what any of it meant. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was an unknown number and Daniel ignored it. Then it rang again, and again. Finally he answered. Hello? Silence. Then Emily's trembling voice. Daniel, I need help. Every emotion he buried instantly resurfaced. Where are you? Her breathing sounded shaky. He found out I spoke to you. Daniel's expression darkened immediately. Who? You know who. Then the call disconnected. Daniel called back instantly. No answer. Again. Nothing. Within minutes, he was in the car with security tracking her location. 40 minutes later, they arrived outside a luxury condominium downtown. Daniel rushed upstairs. The moment the elevator doors opened, he heard shouting. Victor's voice. Emily crying. Then something crashed violently against a wall. Daniel walked toward the apartment slowly, his face completely calm. The front door was partially open. Inside, Emily sat on the floor holding her cheek while Victor paced furiously nearby. Victor looked up and his face hardened instantly. You. Daniel stepped inside without fear. Move away from her. Victor laughed bitterly. You think money makes you a hero now? Daniel ignored him and looked directly at Emily. Are you hurt? Before she could answer, Victor slammed a glass onto the counter. She's my wife. Daniel's voice became ice cold. No man who loves a woman puts his hands on her. Victor stepped closer aggressively. And what are you gonna do about it? For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Victor smirked because Daniel didn't yell, didn't swing at him and didn't lose control. Instead, Daniel simply looked at Emily and said, Come with me. Victor grabbed her wrist immediately. She's not going anywhere. Emily winced in pain. Daniel's jaw tightened. For the first time in years, visible anger flashed across his face. Take your hand off her. Victor moved even closer. Or what? Daniel stared at him calmly. Tomorrow morning every business partner you have will learn exactly who you are. Victor's expression changed slightly, because unlike years ago, Daniel now possessed real influence. Money, connections, power, and men like Victor depended entirely on reputation. Daniel continued speaking quietly. You touch her again, and I promise your empire disappears piece by piece. Victor tried laughing, but uncertainty crept into his eyes and Emily slowly pulled her arm away. This time, Victor didn't stop her because suddenly he understood something terrifying. The broke man he once mocked had become someone capable of destroying him without ever raising his voice. Daniel removed his coat gently and placed it around Emily's shoulders. Then he led her toward the elevator. Victor shouted behind them. She'll leave you again. That's what she does. Daniel paused briefly, but he didn't look back, because deep down, part of him feared Victor might be right. Back at the penthouse, Emily sat quietly wrapped in a blanket while rain poured against the windows. The silence between them felt heavy with years of unfinished emotions. Daniel handed her a cup of tea. You should see a doctor. Emily shook her head weakly. I'm okay. No, Daniel said softly. You're not. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. The strong image she tried maintaining for years finally collapsed. I thought he loved me, she whispered. Daniel said nothing. Emily laughed bitterly through tears. You know what's funny? Daniel looked at her. I used to think money solved everything. She wiped her eyes slowly. When I left you, I convinced myself I was choosing stability, security, and a better future. Daniel stared quietly out the window. And did you get it? Her silence answered the question. Emily looked around the massive penthouse. The expensive furniture, the city skyline, and the quiet luxury. Then back at Daniel. I didn't recognize you tonight. Daniel smiled faintly. Most people don't anymore. She lowered her head. I was horrible to you. Daniel stayed silent for several seconds because hearing those words after years of pain felt strangely empty. Finally he spoke. You were honest. Emily looked shocked. No, I was selfish. Daniel leaned back slowly. You left when life got difficult. Her eyes filled again. I know. And the worst part. Daniel continued quietly. When you said I'd never become anything, I believed you. Emily looked devastated. I didn't mean it. But you said it. The room became painfully quiet. Daniel finally looked directly at her. You were supposed to be the one person who stayed. Emily broke down crying, and despite everything she had done, Daniel still hated seeing her in pain. That was the problem. A part of him still loved her, even after the humiliation and the abandonment, even after spending years rebuilding himself from nothing, because love doesn't always disappear just because someone hurts you. Sometimes it stays there like a scar, quiet, permanent, and dangerous. Over the following weeks, news about Victor Lang began spreading quickly. At first it was small reports. Financial irregularities, questionable business practices, complaints from former employees. And then it escalated. Lawsuits were filed. Investigations were opened. Partners began withdrawing quietly to protect themselves, and almost overnight, the carefully built image Victor had spent years constructing started to crack. The same man who once spoke arrogantly about success and status suddenly found himself answering questions he could no longer control. Daniel never publicly commented on any of it. He didn't need to. The people around him understood influence without explanation. And Victor, for the first time in his life, experienced what it meant to lose control of the world he thought he owned. Meanwhile, Daniel's company continued expanding at a pace few could keep up with. New markets opened, international partnerships followed, and media attention increased. He appeared on covers of financial magazines and was invited to speak at global conferences. People who once ignored his emails now waited for his approval. But success brought a new kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of failure, but the loneliness of distance, because now, everyone wanted something from him. Old friends resurfaced, former colleagues apologized for not believing in him, and even distant relatives suddenly remembered he existed. Daniel learned something uncomfortable. When you have nothing, people underestimate you, but when you have everything, people want access to you. And very few people ever meet you as a human being in between. Emily, however, stayed distant after that night in the penthouse. She didn't reach out often. And when she did, it was brief and careful, as if afraid to disturb a life she no longer fully belonged to. One evening, after a major interview, Daniel walked into a quiet restaurant alone. He was tired, not physically, but mentally exhausted from constant attention and expectation. When he entered, he noticed her immediately. Emily was sitting near the window, waiting. She stood up slightly when she saw him. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said. Daniel sat down across from her. "You said it was important." Emily nodded slowly. "I finalized everything with Victor." Daniel looked at her for a moment, absorbing the information without reaction. "And?" She hesitated. "And I wanted to thank you." "For what?" he asked. "For not leaving me there. For helping me when you had no reason to." Daniel leaned back slightly. "You once mattered to me," he said. "That doesn't disappear overnight." Emily looked down, emotional but controlled. "You still speak like the old Daniel sometimes." He gave a faint, tired smile. "Is still here, just buried under everything that happened." A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but heavy, full of everything they had lived through. After a while, Emily finally asked the question she had been avoiding. "Do you think we could ever start again?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. He looked at her carefully. Not with anger, not with longing, but with clarity. For a moment, he thought about the version of himself who would have said yes without hesitation. The version who believed love could fix anything. The version who would have taken her back just to feel whole again. But that version no longer led his life. He spoke slowly. "I don't know." Emily's eyes lowered slightly, not surprised, but disappointed. Daniel continued. "I spent a long time trying to become someone worthy of being chosen." He paused. "But eventually I realized something." Emily looked up. "The right people don't wait for you to become successful before they treat you with respect." The words landed quietly, but deeply. Emily swallowed hard, holding back emotion. "I know I hurt you," she said. Daniel nodded slightly. "You did." A long silence followed. Then he added, softer this time, "And I forgave you a long time ago." That surprised her. Her voice lowered. "Then why does it still feel like there's something between us that never ended?" Daniel looked away briefly because he knew the answer. Some connections don't disappear cleanly. They fade slowly, and even when forgiveness exists, trust doesn't always follow it. I think some things, he said carefully, don't go back to what they were. Emily nodded slowly, accepting it even though it hurt. I understand, she whispered. They sat there for a while longer without speaking. Two people shaped by the same past, but no longer living in the same version of it. Eventually, Emily stood up. I should go, she said quietly. Daniel nodded. Take care of yourself. She hesitated, like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, she simply turned and left. Daniel remained seated for a while after she was gone. Not sad, not angry, just still. For the first time, he realized something important. He was no longer trying to prove anything to anyone. Not to the world, not to Victor, and not even to Emily. And that realization felt heavier than success itself because it meant the part of his life driven by pain was finally fading. And what came next would be something entirely new. Daniel visited the old neighborhood one evening without telling anyone. There was no reason for it anymore. No business meeting nearby, no appointment, no obligation. Just a quiet pull toward the place where everything had once fallen apart. The building still stood the same way it always had. Old paint, cracked walls, and dim hallway lights that flickered at random intervals. It looked smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he was just different now. He stood across the street for a long time, watching people move in and out of the building. Normal lives continuing in a place that had once felt like the end of his world. His mind drifted back to the night Emily left. The rain, the silence, the sound of the door closing, and the way he had sat there afterward, convinced that his life was finished. He realized something strange. That moment hadn't been the end of his life. It had been the beginning of everything that came after it. Still overthinking everything, a voice said beside him. Daniel turned. Emily stood there. No luxury cars. No bodyguards. No tension of another life hanging over her. Just her. Simple coat, quiet expression, and real presence. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything important had already been said in pieces over time. You came here too? Daniel asked finally. Emily nodded. I wasn't sure you'd actually show up. Daniel gave a faint smile. I wasn't sure I would either. They both looked at the building again. The silence between them wasn't painful anymore. It was just honest. After a while, Emily spoke softly. I used to hate this place. Daniel nodded. I know. She continued. I blamed everything on it. The stress, the pressure, the feeling of being stuck. She paused. But now I think I was wrong. Daniel listened without interrupting. It wasn't the place, she said quietly. It was me. I didn't know how to handle fear. Daniel looked at her. What kind of fear? The fear that nothing would ever get better, she said. And instead of staying and facing it with you, I ran from it. The words hung in the air for a moment. Honest, unfiltered, heavy. Daniel looked back at the building. I don't think I understood fear back then either, he said. Emily turned slightly toward him. You did what you could, she said softly. I did, Daniel replied. But it still wasn't enough for us. A pause. Then Emily asked quietly, do you ever think about what would have happened if I stayed? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He took his time because it wasn't a simple question anymore. Finally, he said, sometimes. Emily nodded slowly, accepting that answer. Daniel continued, but I also think I wouldn't have become who I am now. Emily looked down. That answer hurt, but she didn't argue, because deep down, she understood it too. A different life might have meant a different outcome, but not necessarily a better one. Daniel exhaled slowly. You leaving broke me, he said honestly. Emily closed her eyes briefly. I know. But it also forced me to rebuild everything, he continued. And in that process, I stopped defining myself by what I lost. Emily looked at him, eyes slightly wet. What do you define yourself by now? She asked. Daniel thought about it. Not quickly, not emotionally, but carefully. Then he said, by what I survived. That answer stayed between them for a while. Quiet, simple, and final in a way neither of them fully expected. Emily nodded slowly. I'm sorry, she said again. Daniel shook his head slightly. I know. Another silence followed. This one longer, more peaceful, less burdened. Then Emily spoke softly. So what happens now? Daniel looked at her, not with anger, not with longing, but with acceptance. Now, he said, we move forward. She nodded. Even though her eyes were wet, she didn't argue because she understood. Some stories don't return to what they were. They only continue forward in different directions. Emily took a small breath. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You too, he replied. She hesitated one last time, as if waiting for something more, but nothing more came. Not because there was hatred, not because there was pride, but because there was closure. Emily turned and walked away slowly. Daniel stood there watching her leave, and for the first time, he didn't feel like he was losing her. He felt like he was finally letting go of something that had already ended a long time ago. He looked back at the building one last time, then turned in the opposite direction and walked away, not as the man who had been abandoned, not as the man who had become successful, but as someone who no longer needed either version of his past to define him. And that was the real ending. Not revenge, not reunion, but peace.